Wow, I'm back and I'm excited. Holy cow. Excited to read exciting learned judges' writings. So, just to recap, we were reading about Hanson v. Faruqi. So this is a hate speech. Faruqi sued, I believe, Hanson under the Hate Speech Act. What is it? Anyway, some particular act. Our learned judge found that Hanson had indeed engaged in hate speech, and now we have a panel of reviewers, and this is the appeal. So, good thing about appeals is it normally covers off all of the evidence and everything in there in the initial dispute, which is what we like to see. So we are at the evidence stage. So we're briefly introducing the evidence. So Senator Faruqi gave evidence and was cross-examined. The primary judge concluded that she was an impressive witness who retained her composure despite significant provocation in cross-examination. His Honour considered her evidence to have been unshaken in cross-examination, and he accepted it. His Honour recorded that Faruqi's evidence was that the impact of the Hanson tweet had made her reflect like never before on the impacts of telling it like it is for someone like her in Australian politics. And said that it had a silencing effect on her and that she moderated herself when speaking about colonialism or racism because of the hate generated. Faruqi accepted that it was acceptable for Senator Hanson to object and respond to her comments about the Queen, but asserted that being told to piss off back to where she came from was insulting, offensive, and humiliating. Autobiographical witnesses. So Faruqi called evidence from 9 witnesses who were referred to as autobiographical witnesses. They were each identified as witnesses through a public invitation by Senator Faruqi to document how the Hanson tweet made them feel. Each deponent gave evidence as to the demographic characteristics with which they identify. Culturally Jewish is, keeping in mind, Faruqi sits on the far left not the very far left, but fairly well far left in Australia. So she's a Greens Party member, not quite what we would call socialist or communists. They've got their own parties, luckily, but she sits firmly in the pro-Pali camp. So the idea that someone would identify as culturally Jewish certainly makes sense there in terms of a distinction between Jewish and culturally Jewish. In broad terms, each of the 9 individuals gave evidence about their reaction to the Hanson tweet. Okay, witness came from a variety of backgrounds. Okay, His Honour accepted the evidence of the biographical witnesses. Senator Hanson challenged the affidavits of the witnesses on the basis that they were irrelevant, inadmissible opinion evidence, and that the probative value of the evidence was outweighed by it being prejudicial, misleading, and a waste of time. There was also a parliamentary privilege objection to part of one of the autobiographical witness affidavits, which is not presently relevant. The objections were heard by His Honour, who explained his reasons for admitting the evidence. My guess is because it relates to the impact of your words on the broader public as a whole, if you made people generally feel a certain way from those backgrounds. Whoopa! What else have we got going on here? Senator Hanson's first ground of appeal contends not only that the judge erred in failing to exclude the evidence, but also that his reliance upon it led to an erroneous decision. I see. So her first ground of appeal for this lodging of the appeal is that she's basically saying these witnesses are bullshit. The expert witnesses. Senator Faruqi called and relied upon the evidence of 3 expert witnesses. Professor Paradis from Deakin University, so he conducts research. So he's got a PhD in social epidemiology. He conducts research into health, social, and economic effects of racism, as well as anti-racism theory, policy, and practice across diverse settings. Holy cow. Professor Paradis' evidence was to the effect that the Hanson tweet was a common form of racism, described as "go back to where you came from." His evidence also traversed concepts about racism itself, how it arises, and how it operates. That opinion was said to be supported by research that he had undertaken. He further gave evidence about factors that might exacerbate the impact of racism. Professor Paradis was cross-examined, and His Honour concluded that he was overall unshaken in cross-examination, and his evidence was accepted. This is an interesting, this unscathed and unshaken and this kind of stuff, this kind of about the cross-examination is quite funny. Professor Reynolds at the University of Melbourne, an expert in the areas of group processes and intergroup relations from social identity perspectives. So a social psychology, talking about racism in terms of social psychology. Her evidence concerned the nature and impact of racism and prejudice. Okay. She came out unscathed from cross-examination. And then we've got Professor Wingard from University of Houston in Texas. Her evidence concerned the understanding of the phrase "go back to where you came from" and its place in anti-immigrant and nativist sentiment in Western countries since nation-states commenced limiting immigration. She expressed the opinion that the Hanson tweet implies that Senator Faruqi was gifted Australian citizenship, has enjoyed all the nation state has had to offer, but now is ungrateful and should therefore go back to where she came from. Yes, I think that's kind of the idea, isn't it, of the offending tweet. Associate Professor Wingard was not required for cross-examination. The evidence of all 3 experts was subject to challenge. Challenge was rejected by the primary judge. Senator Hanson now asserts there was an error in failing to exclude some of the evidence. The error is said to have resulted in erroneous findings in the primary judgment overall, and these issues are canvassed in ground 1 of this appeal. The tendency evidence. A solicitor for Faruqi affirmed 2 affidavits setting out the details of internet research carried out by her and others directed at collating evidence of historical statements made by Senator Hanson, which were said to be relevant to the issues in the case. The product of that research was used to support notices of intention to adduce tendency evidence under R30.31 of the Rules for the Purposes of the Evidence Act. The alleged tendency was that Senator Hanson tended to make public statements because of the race, colour, or national or ethnic origin of a person that has, or a group of people that have one or more of the group attributes. She certainly has that tendency. I like that. This is interesting. In addition, it was said that Senator Hanson had a tendency to engage in commentary consistent with Senator Hanson holding white supremacist views, including by making hateful remarks about a person who has or a group of people who have one or more of the group attributes. His Honour accepted that Hanson repeated expression that Hanson's repeated expression of the views and attitudes evidenced by the publication extracts set out in the tendency notice justified the finding which His Honour made, that Senator Hanson had a tendency to make negative, derogatory, discriminating or hateful statements in relation to, about, or against groups of people relevantly identified as persons of colour, migrants to Australia and Muslims, and to do so because of those characteristics. A challenge to the evidence referred to in the tendency notices and findings made in reliance upon it were not pressed in the course of this appeal. Interesting. So she does not apparently she does not appeal the fact that she has a tendency to do these things. Miss Gasparini. Miss Gasparini is a solicitor acting for Faruqi. She affirmed an affidavit in support of an application to reopen Faruqi's case to adduce further evidence relevant to whether Hanson knew at the time that she published the Hanson tweet that Senator Faruqi was Muslim. Okay, Gasparini is a solicitor acting for Senator Faruqi. She affirmed an affidavit in support of an application to reopen the case to adduce further evidence. Okay. The gist of that evidence was the substance of various internet searches performed by Gasparini which tended to the conclusion that Senator Hanson was aware at the time of publishing the Hanson tweet that Faruqi was okay. So they're just trying to demonstrate that this go back to where you came from. It's, you know, it's tied into this Muslim shit, right? Okay, and they're demonstrating that this Pauline Hanson knew, and they can find, I guess, writings or evidence that hinted that she knew. Ah, itchy. Senator Hanson gave evidence and was cross-examined. Her evidence canvassed her personal and public life, including her reaction to the death of Queen Elizabeth II, or the second or whatever, and the circumstances in which she came to draft and cause to be published the Hanson tweet. Her evidence also canvassed her perception of Senator Faruqi's hypocrisy and insincerity. Senator Hanson's evidence was that there is nothing about Faruqi's race, colour or ethnic origin that means she should not be in Australia. It was her attitude that was said to be the reason that Hanson told her to pack your bags and piss off back to Pakistan. She said that she believed that what she said in her tweet was true, and that it was an honest expression of her beliefs, and that she thought that Senator Faruqi would take my criticism on the chin. His Honour said that he was left with the distinct impression that Senator Hanson would say anything that came to mind if she thought that it would suit her at that time. She had little regard to whether what she said was true or false. His Honour concluded that her evidence was generally unreliable. Oh my god. And this is like, judges are like the big old bullshit detectors in the room, right? They see a lot of this stuff. I mean, okay, this is such a weird thing to say, piss off back to Pakistan. But she's an Australian citizen. She's not, why would she have to go back to anywhere? She's here. She's doing it. She's a fucking senator. And this whole, like, the idea of, oh, I thought, you know, well, what's the wrong with you? You can't take a joke? Oh. This is that, the idea that, you know, you can't take a joke, take my criticism on the chin. This sort of can't take a joke attitude. This is such a silly way of looking. It's such a victim blaming attitude, right? It's all your fault. You can't take a joke. That's the problem with you. You just can't take a joke. Victim blaming, abuser behavior. Nice. I love it. The elements of section 18C. This is kind of where I'm really interested in, is like I want to understand how they slice this pie, or how they cut this cheese so that they know it falls on one side of hate speech versus the other side. That's what I'm interested in here particularly. Okay, reasonably likely to offend, insult, humiliate, or intimidate. This is section 18C 1A. And so this is the judge talking about the reasonably likely to offend, insult, humiliate, or intimidate. It was common ground that the Hanson tweet was an act done otherwise than in private. Therefore, His Honour identified as the first inquiry whether the Hanson tweet was likely, in all the circumstances, to offend, insult, humiliate, or intimidate another person or group of people. His Honour held that the requirement that the assessment of what was reasonably likely to offend, etc., be made by reference to all the circumstances requires consideration of the social, cultural, historical, and other circumstances attending the person or people in the group who are said to be likely to be offended, etc. Relying on Eatock vs. Bolt, those circumstances included the death of the Queen on the day of both tweets, the identities of both Miss Faruqi and Miss Hanson as senators. Okay, so these are the all circumstances. So they're trying to get a totality around, okay, it's not just looking at the tweet in a vacuum. Let's get a little bit of context here, please. Some context. And so part of that context is the death of the Queen, the fact that both of these people are senators, the content of the Faruqi tweet to which the Hanson tweet responded, yes, very important. The medium of the publication of both tweets being Twitter, a forum well known for harsh and unconsidered comments that readily go viral in the sense of being reproduced, spread, and republished multiple times. That the Hanson tweet was a reply to the Faruqi tweet, which therefore contains the Faruqi tweet within it. That Senator Hanson had a very substantial following on Twitter, and the content of the Hanson tweet itself. The manner and extent to which His Honour took contextual matters into account is ventilated on ground 3 of this appeal. Some of these words is funny. Ventilated, a lot of this must be written by like the clerks, right? Because they're having fun. They're having fun here, folks. They're just having a little bit of fun with the language. As to just checking no one's here. Yes, all by myself, just the way I like it. Here we go. Keep going. It just means I get to read all of the boring document to my heart's content. As to the content of the Hanson tweet itself, His Honour concluded that it had 3 central messages that were all directed to Senator Faruqi's status as being from somewhere else. Okay, as to they had 3 central messages that were all directed to Senator Faruqi's status as being from somewhere else. They were said to be, first, that as an immigrant, Faruqi took advantage of Australia. She took citizenship, bought several houses, and she took a job in the Parliament. Yet she has the hypocrisy to be critical. His Honour said that this was a message that Senator Faruqi is, as an immigrant, a second-class citizen, and that she should be grateful for what she has and keep quiet. His Honour found it to be othering and exclusionary. Yeah, of course. Well, okay. His Honour found it to be that. Now, can we understand why? Yes, because if you are a citizen in this country, you are afforded all the rights of this country. And it includes to be sometimes having your own personal thoughts and opinions and expressing those so long as they don't run afoul of the law. Right? So she didn't take advantage of Australia. She's just an Australian. That's how citizenship works. And once you're here, it's all on, baby. Once you have that citizenship, there's no right or wrongs. It's just you are an Australian, right? You're doing the thing by existing, whether you've got several houses or not, or a job in Parliament. Secondly, okay, so that was the first one. Secondly, that Senator Faruqi should piss off back to Pakistan. His Honour observed that this was accepted by Senator Hanson as a variant of the slogan, "Go back to where you came from," a slogan which His Honour accepted to be a racist trope with a long history. Trope. Thank you. Yes. Thirdly, the tweet was said to be targeted at Senator Faruqi herself to convey an anti-Muslim message that was Islamophobic, that it targeted a prominent Muslim and commanded her to go back to Pakistan. Now, this is where the tendency, the evidence of tendency plays in, right? Because nowhere in the tweet does it mention anything about Muslims or anti-Muslim this, or there's nothing in there about being Muslim other than Pakistan is a Muslim country. Now, thanks to the tendency evidence, we can draw a clear line between why would Hanson mention Pakistan specifically instead of just the "go back to where you came from" variant of the slogan. She specifically puts the "go back to Pakistan," and it's because of that anti-Muslim Islamophobic tendency. Yes, so I think you can draw a clear line here from the Hanson tweet being anti-Muslim based on the inclusion of the proper noun Pakistan. I don't think that's too wild a bow to draw. The correctness, or otherwise, of His Honour's conclusion in relation to these three central messages is at the core of the second ground of appeal. Okay. Having identified the messages of the Hanson tweet as one of the circumstances requiring consideration in the analysis, His Honour went on to identify the likely effect of it upon a person or a group of people. It was necessary, His Honour said, to identify the group in section 18C1A by reference to the characteristics listed in section 18C1B, i.e. by reference to race, colour, national or ethnic origin. His Honour said that the identification of the group or groups is not straightforward. Having considered the authorities relevant to the task, His Honour concluded the most appropriate groups for consideration were people of colour who are migrants to Australia or who are Australians of relatively recent migrant heritage, and Muslims who are people of colour in Australia. Now, I think that's appropriate. I think that's fairly appropriate to go back to Pakistan, so that would apply to recent migrants, relatively recent migrant heritage. I mean, I think the colour aspect's only coming in because Faruqi's quite dark, right? We looked her up on Wiki before, right? Faruqi. Yeah, she's pretty brown. She's brown enough. This is not Faruqi. Those two groups have, okay, so those are the two groups. Those two groups have combinations of the pleaded characteristics extracted at certain places above. The identification of groups of this breadth in circumstances where the Hanson tweet was, on its face, directed only at Senator Faruqi is the subject of ground 5A of this appeal. His Honour's approach to the identification of the groups is the subject of ground 5B. So his approach and whether the Hanson tweet received sufficient notice of the groups identified, and whether Senator Hanson received sufficient notice of groups identified. Okay, while Ground 5C raises the question of whether Senator Faruqi was or needed to be a member of the groups to sustain a complaint under Section 18C. His Honour did not restrict the groups to users of Twitter, and this is said by Senator Hanson to constitute an error. I mean, does that really matter though? You could technically say that all these people, there's no way to know if whether or not these people are on Twitter or not. So you can't restrict it. So even if you restrict it to Twitter, you just have to assume that it's representative of the broad base of the public, right? So it doesn't, like, whether you, no matter which way you cut it, you've basically got to assume that it's representative of Australia. So you might as well say, okay, fuck it, whatever. Right? Like you get to the same end point, right? You must. His Honour then turned to consider the likely reaction of the groups that he had identified to the Hanson tweet. In doing so, His Honour said that the requirement that the relevant act is reasonably likely to have the requisite effect is satisfied if there is a real and not fanciful or remote chance of the relevant outcome. That outcome being that the act would offend, insult, humiliate, or intimidate. In identifying acts that fell within that scope, His Honour noted that the Section 18C1A only applies to conduct that has profound and serious effects, not to be likened to mere slights. Citing Creek v. Cairns post, Brofo v. Human Rights and Equal Opportunities Commission, and a whole bunch of other stuff. His Honour did not consider evidence that some users of Twitter regarded the Faruqi tweet as controversial or offensive to be relevant to the perspective of the relevant reasonable group member or reasonable targeted person. And so it was not a factor that would alter the impact of the Hanson tweet upon that person or group. His Honour also rejected the suggestion that the relevant hypothetical reader would see hypocrisy in the Faruqi tweet because Senator Faruqi had sworn allegiance to the Queen. The inquiry was recognised by His Honour as an objective one. Ground 3B argues that while His Honour identified the task as objective, it was an error to consider evidence of Senator Faruqi's personal reaction to the Hanson tweet. Jeez. In analysing the impact of the Hanson tweet, His Honour accepted that it was a direct response to the Faruqi tweet, but did not consider that context detracted from the nature and strength of the three messages which His Honour had identified. Moreover, His Honour identified the content of the Faruqi tweet to be concerned with Australian colonial history and the role and place of race and racism in that history, acknowledging these to be contested issues along with the question of whether Australia should become a republic or have a treaty with First Nations people. Although confronting to some people even the characterization of the British Empire as a racist empire built on stolen lives, land and wealth of colonized peoples was not, His Honour found, an expression of fringe or revisionist historiography. His Honour concluded that these contextual factors would not be seen by the relevant hypothetical reader to justify or lessen the effect of the targeted racist, anti-immigrant and anti-Muslim response from Senator Hanson. Okay. British Empire as a racist empire built on stolen lives, land, and wealth of colonized peoples. I think, you could describe this as inflammatory or incendiary, but I think you would be hard pressed to say this is not true. I think you could demonstrate this fairly well. So I think it's His Honour is not woke. Thank God. His Honour is just driven by the facts. His Honour found that the expert evidence of Professor Paradis and Professor Reynolds established the harmful effects of racism. And that rate, okay. His Honour concluded that both groups of people in Australia that he identified were reasonably likely, in all the circumstances, to have been offended, profoundly and seriously, insulted, humiliated, and intimidated by the Hanson tweet. His Honour considered humiliation and intimidation to be at the more serious end of the spectrum of conduct prohibited by Section 18C, and thus more difficult to prove. In relation to those two aspects of His Honour's analysis, there was therefore some further emphasis, His Honour finding that it was seriously humiliating to be told as an immigrant person of colour that you are a second-class citizen and unworthy. True. It was intimidating to be publicly attacked in the way that occurred and to be subjected to the racist trope to go back to where you came from. His Honour said that this conclusion flowed at least in part because of the silencing effect of such conduct, explained by Professor Paradis, blah blah blah, and some of the autobiographical witness and the license it grants others to do the same. These are matters which, His Honour said, engender fear not only of being subjected to similar verbal racist abuse, but also fear of being physically attacked. His Honour said it makes members of the relevant groups feel that their place in Australia is vulnerable. That effect was found to have been exacerbated by the fact that Senator Hanson is a person in a position of power with an amplified voice and a work colleague of Senator Faruqi. Yeah, because it's about the context, the circumstances. Thus, His Honour was satisfied that the likely effects of the messages in the Hanson tweet rise to and above the necessary gravity or severity inherent in the prohibition, and that they were profound and serious, and could not be likened to mere slights. His Honour was therefore satisfied that requirements in the section were established. This conclusion is challenged by grounds 4. Finding in respect of a hypothetical reasonable person in the circumstances of Senator Faruqi, and 5E, finding in respect of hypothetical reasonable members of the relevant groups. Okay, alright. Let's take a little bit of a break here. We have left, well, what is this? This guy is, this West report, this Michael West person, is starting to gain more traction at the moment, now that they're being sued. So I'm kind of curious about what's going on here. So it looks like a couple of Gen X guys. A Gen X guy potentially, and then some contributors and columnists. So an independent media publisher covering the rising power of corporations over democracy. Yes, the populist talking point, the billionaire class, and the multinationals. It's all about globalization. We are non-partisan, do not take advertising, and are funded by readers. Our investigations focus on big business, particularly multinational tax avoiders, financial markets, and the banking and energy sectors. Let me guess, big business is always bad? Is that the conclusion of every article? Big business bad? Big business bad. Sounds of silence a month into payday super. No answer on super for creatives. America envy the pet shop glass of economic comment. Okay, I know. Jewish peace protested a royal commission. Never experienced a jot of anti-Semitism. Royal commission into anti-Semitism of $131 million whinge. This is like the main one that's been going around, right? The Royal Commission no one cared for or wanted. Yeah, I don't know. Like this anti-Semitism, this commission into anti-Semitism was a weird one. Like yeah, anyway, I'm not going to get into it. I'm too tired to think. I can't think fast enough or deeply enough to make coherent commentary. What else is happening in our favorite news stations? Oh yeah, we had Rudd coming out and saying some stuff this week, didn't we? Let's hear what old Kevin07 has to say.
What single answer does she have to any of the list of problems and challenges which I went through before? Zip is the answer to that.
You're from Queensland. Could you have anticipated 30 years ago that Pauline Hanson would be outpolling your own party in government and the opposition coalition?
Well, it's very easy to play the politics of protest. It's very hard to do the grinding business of government, which looks after practical problems of national security, of the economy and growing it, environmental sustainability so that we don't all exhaust and expire the planet through climate change, and delivering basic services for the Australian people, including housing affordability, which has been eating away so badly at people's standard of living over a long period of time. The hard business of government is to come up with practical responses to each of those challenges. The easy business of politics is simply to act as a protest vector and then lace it and spice it with the politics of race. That's what Mrs. Hanson's been doing ever since she emerged in my fair state of Queensland a quarter of a century ago. Her script hasn't changed. But ask this question of yourselves. What single answer does she have to any of the list of problems and challenges which I went through before? Zip is the answer to that. What single answer does she have to...
Well, after we watched that interview with her and our friend Isaac Butterfield, and she has policies. The crazy thing is she has policies. They're just so shit. And it's funny, I've been thinking more about it. And I'm not sure, I guess one of the things that I wanted to start streaming and talking about this stuff for is, I don't know if there's an alt media for the lefties and the centre left. I'm not even talking about the socialists and the communists. I'm sure that probably exists, but I mean, the classic at the moment, I think I don't know if it's on everyone else's Reddit, Australian Reddit, but Shit Rentals, the Purple Pingers fella, he's starting to get a bit more popularity rising through my Reddit feed. 100%, there's a lot of socialists getting their shit out there online and fighting cost of living stuff. But when we're thinking about the centre left, the social democrats of our country, the moderate middle, there is just nothing there. I don't know who's out there, like who. Okay, when I think about, I'm still trying to find who the main alt media influencers in Australia are. I mean, clearly you've got friendly Geordies, right? So we've got the Labor left, the Labor shill, friendly Geordies, who, God bless him, he's fighting the good fight for the Labor Party. But I feel like he's skirting very fucking close to these trips to China and hanging out with Hassan Piker or whatever. This is yeah. It'd be nice to know just how left it really goes in the friendly Geordie's brain. But having said that, actually one of the strongest Labor warriors, hell yes. So and then who's the other guy that's obviously, there was another guy that's come up recently. Punters Politics, of course, is wildly popular at the moment, having done that gas tax royal commission, but very much sitting on that like, let's have a look at some of the video titles here. This is going to be a two-sider. So Punters Politics is going to be billionaires bad, large companies bad, both sides are just as bad as each other. I'm not like, oh fuck me. I'm telling you, man, my brain stops working at about 9 o'clock. Just an Aussie punter navigating the divisive world of Australian politics on a quest to make it simpler for the everyday punter. So, non-partisan, I think, would be his. If you would ask him, what is he, left or right, he would probably be I'm non-partisan. I'm just here to outline what's going on and explain to people what's going on. So yeah, big business bad, billionaires bad. Yeah. Cool. Is he a Okay, there we go. Grifter? Is he a grifter? I don't... So a grifter implies that you are knowingly and with malice, basically lying, to earn a living. So, is he grifting? I don't think he's being false or lying about his positions he's taking in these videos. I think he's definitely found a lane which is the anti-billionaire lane, which is actually a very popular lane. It's just like, it's not a big, like, fuck me. So there's a few billionaires. Okay, yes, we need to try and minimize their influence. Certainly there's a lot of public influence in terms of politics, but you know what? Oh God, I'm gonna have to do it again. Let's have a look at the Labor Party donations over the last few years, because thankfully they are providing some of the most open and honest reporting of their donations. If I come to their wiki page, I can scroll down to donors list. I can see all of the largest donors over $100,000, as well as party entity donations. Now, for 2024-25, they received $71 million, with number one being the Mining and Energy Union. This is a trade union run by workers, specific classes of workers working in the oil, gas, nuclear, chemical production, power generating industries, metalliferous mining and exploration industries. Right? Pratt Holdings. Whew, this is going to be one, and this is going to throw me off, isn't it? A businessman. Pratt and his family net worth was assessed at $30 billion. Then we've got Westbank, Westpac, United Workers Union, Fox Group, Plumbing and Trades, Australian Manufacturing Workers Union. But there's a shitloads of unions in here. Like, these unions aren't donating to the Liberal Party, so they're clearly aligning themselves with the party that's going to do the best for them as a trade union. Now, there are some billionaires in here, banks, large companies, etc., etc. But it's likely because, like, you've got to keep in mind that a lot of political parties still have to sell the dream and still have to have policies and still have to be able to get voters and votes. So they can't be doing just random shit that leads them to screw over their voting public. And the thing is, everyone wants to think that they're getting screwed over, but they're really not. Like, where's the corruption? There is no corruption. Like, it's. I need to think about how to explain this more, because corruption is essentially like you're looking at dodgy deals, underhanded people finding benefits illegally, not through the legal methods. That's kind of what corruption is. If Labor has policies that benefit these people independent of them donating, then it's in these people's best interests to donate so that they can pass the policies that benefit them or that they support. Right? Like, it doesn't take shitloads of money to get elected. Look at the Greens. The Greens get fuck all money. In comparison, they're still getting people elected, but they're also too far left for the majority of Australians. So, yeah. There's not, also, like, have a look at the Labor Party in South Australia. They're finding they're almost the most keen. The Labor Party is almost the most keen political party to try and extricate or separate money from politics. And I think they're the best. They're the most. They're probably going to listen to people more than the Liberal Party or anyone else for that matter. So let's keep going. We got another 2 years of this current government, I believe, wasn't it? Isn't it? 2025? Yeah. 26, maybe 3 years. When was that election? Telling you, my brain is fucking custard. Anyway. So there's this guy. And yeah, we've watched Monuments to Misinformation on the show before. This one's old mate is a up and coming, certainly very much a centre left. And I would say probably more centre left than Friendly Geordie's. Probably much more in line with a, the centre left, the middle of the party. And very much pro-Labour, anti-One Nation, anti-Lib, and very good on there, just getting the facts across. That's where my train of thought was going. Like this, what this One Nation scam, like, and why people are buying for it. It's a good video he's got. Like, I'm not sure how much of people on the media talking about how shit One Nation is, how they've got no ideas, how their policies are bad. I'm not sure that will have any impact on people who are going to vote for One Nation anyway. Like, they're not going to be seeking out that kind of information, and it's probably not going to come across their desk. I'd love to have, like, the Department of Finance or whatever it is, the Treasury or whoever, just to do the cost modelling on her shitty ideas, so that we could at least have some dollar figures and say, hey, did you know that Pauline Hanson said she wants to do this, and if she does it, that means we'll have to pay an extra $50 billion a year. That's line item 1. And then you go through like 10 or 15 of these line items and say, this is what she wants to do, and it's going to cost you another 10 billion a year. And then at the bottom you say, if she gets what she wants, our budget will blow out by fucking $150 billion, whatever it would be. I think that would be a great, because people, in a weird way, the right wing of our country fucking cares way too much about balancing the budget. And look, don't get me wrong, I quite like it too. I don't want to spend much, I don't really want to spend more than we're receiving from tax, unless it's necessary. Sometimes as a socially democratic country, we have to be able to print a bit of money to weather international storms and make sure that everyone's taken care of in those downtimes. And then, unfortunately, we do have to pay it back in the future. But you know what? Millennials are going through that now. We're the payback generation, unfortunately. But it'll benefit our children and future generations. C'est la vie. Alright, that's it. My time is up. My brain is cooked. I am officially broken for today. Goodbye, adios, farewell, auf Wiedersehen. See you next week.